Well, he is everywhere, and this time of year, we're thankful for that. He's Big Ten Network, he's NCAA, he's Turner Sports, he's Andy Katz. He is one of the gurus of college basketball, and he joins us here for the first time. Andy, great to see you. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, let's talk first. We did see you Thursday night with that Illinois Northwestern game, and we were talking about just what a tale of two halves in this. Illinois had to have this win to try to stay alive for a double bye, and let's face it, with the games coming up, maybe stay above 500 come the end of the season in the Big Ten. Big performance by them in the second half.
Yeah, really, as Brad Underwood said after the game, a tale of two halves. I think the biggest positive here is that Terrence Shannon, who had missed the last couple of games with concussion protocols. And as we've seen over the years, I mean, no two concussions are the same. You never know how a guy's going to come back. I mean, just take Illinois. Andre Cabello was really out for a significant amount of time last year with a concussion. So you never know. And he didn't practice much, but he's ready to go, got cleared, and was a little shaky early, which is understandable. And then he was just on fire in the second half. And for Illinois to reach its potential, they need Terrence Shannon to be that go-to guy. I mean, we know this in the NCAA tournament and the Big Ten tournament. It's a player that can carry you. And that's why, Zach Edey, even though he's a big, he can do it. Trace Jackson-Davis, same deal. I think Boo Buie certainly can do that for Northwestern. Jameer Young for Maryland. And Terrence Shannon certainly can do that for Illinois. You're right. They have a very tough schedule. Still got to play Purdue. But this was I wouldn't say a must win, but a really reset win for them to play to their potential. And, I would imagine that the United Center will have a huge pro-Illinois following. And, so they have a great shot, obviously, in Chicago, regardless of where they fall on the seed line. And then we'll see in the NCAA tournament. But this team this season has never reached its potential. Maybe it won't ever reach its potential, but it now has a chance, I think.
Andy, you look at the Big Ten as a whole, and have you ever seen a conference that is this jumbled? Like, we go from like day to day almost trying to figure out who's number 2 behind Purdue in this conference. And it goes all the way down. When you look at this, you go all the way down to Wisconsin, who's 8-9, and you get up to Northwestern at 11-6. I mean, there's not a great separation between like 11th place and 2nd place in the Big Ten right now. You ever seen a conference like that?
I have not, and I would actually include, Penn State and Nebraska. Nebraska's 7-10. They've been playing really well of late. It's crazy. There are literally only 2 teams right now, Minnesota and, believe it or not, Ohio State, who have no chance for postseason. So you've got 12 of the 14 schools heading into the final week and a half of the season that have a chance for postseason, because Nebraska certainly could be in the NIT. There's no question that I think it's good parity. And it's funny, the Northwestern fans are long suffering, sort of fall in line with Cub fans before the Cubs finally won a World Series. And I have so many friends, obviously, that went to Northwestern, and they're, Chicken Little Sky's falling. I'm like, whoa, slow down. You just won 3 home games that normal Northwestern teams never win. Right. Purdue, Indiana, and Iowa. Already won at Indiana, already won at Michigan State, already won at Wisconsin. So you have sweeps of Indiana, sweeps of Wisconsin. They're fine. This was, yes, they gave up a lead against a desperate Illinois. Yes, they got to go to Maryland. But that's life in this Big Ten. Right. Like, it's not every team in the league, including Purdue, has had a mini slide. Because that's how competitive this league is this season. Now, will it translate to the NCAA tournament? We'll see. I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of seeds from 5 to 11. I think that's where the chunk of the Big Ten seeds are going to be.
So, Andy, you hear year in and year out, and you see fans across the country, well, the Big Ten's going to fall on their face when it gets to the NCAAs. And they haven't had maybe as much success in the last couple of years as what you would like to have. What do you think? Is there a magic bullet or a reason that you think the Big Ten has struggled a little bit in the NCAA in your eyes?
Well, first of all, it is a recent phenomenon. I mean, people forget, and I'm old enough to remember that they played for a lot of championships and had a ton of Final Four appearances. you could argue that I think Wisconsin was the best team in the 14 and 15 Final Fours, didn't win either one. Michigan played for 2 Final Four titles in 13 and in 18, if I got my years right.
Right.
And, obviously Illinois in 05, Michigan State in 09. They've had multiple opportunities. I think Purdue was the best team in 19, but Mohamed Diakate hit that crazy shot to tie that Virginia game in Louisville, and they won in overtime. So they've had opportunities. I do think a lot of it has to do with guard play. And that's why I have a feeling this could be different, because I just rattled off for you, with some of these teams, exceptional guard play. With obviously Northwestern, Illinois, Maryland, for sure, they're led by guards. Now, Indiana, while I said TJD, Jalen Hood-Schifino is a pro. I mean, he's a first-round pick, and he can go for 30 on you. And I'll give you another one. If they get in, big if, but if they get in, I think Penn State can win games, with Jalen Pickett, because he's a tough matchup. Now, Purdue is the X factor here because they've got something that no one else has, and that's Zach Edey. If Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith, as freshmen, but they have the potential to play, at a higher level, and they have at times. But, it's a little shaky going in with freshman guards to lead you, but we'll see. But I do think that guard play has really been an issue for a lot of these Big Tens most recently.
Mm-hmm. It's a great point. Talking with Andy Katz, again, a Big Ten Network. He's also with NCAA and all the March Madness stuff. It's so great, the fun what you do with the power rankings and everything, and of course with Turner Sports as well. Talk bigger stage as well. We've so many storylines going in. We're a couple weeks away from Selection Sunday. Usually by now you can kind of begin to think the four number one seeds have kind of firmed up. Are we there yet, or is there a team that maybe right now is sitting on the outside looking in that you think still has a shot at getting that number one seed?
I think it's UCLA. As we're speaking, I hope they did win. They were at a lead against Utah that was shrinking. If they did prevail, don't have it in front of me, then I think UCLA is that one other team among the 4 from the top 16 reveal that we saw from the NCAA tournament selection committee that that could get in there. I think UCLA still has to beat Arizona. If they can do that on that last day of the regular season, they're going to be right there. Who could fall off the one line? Houston still could, because they're in the American. They play Memphis one more time at Memphis. They could play them a third time in the American tournament. They don't have the great resume. They just have a great record. So I wouldn't be shocked if Houston got knocked off that. I think Kansas is a lock for one of the ones. Alabama obviously winning the SEC. Although, we'll see. It's interesting with Alabama, as good as their overall resume is. As crazy as it sounds, Texas A&M actually could still win the SEC because they play Alabama at home and they're a game back. And then if Alabama doesn't win the SEC tournament, so that spot certainly could open up. If for some reason Purdue fell flat, maybe, but I think we're talking about those 5 schools, with UCLA being the 5th. 4 of the 5 will get the ones.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at that. Is there I look at this tournament as being so wide open, maybe more wide open than any tournament we've seen, though. Even though we have these ones at the ones of top 5, the 2 line and 3 line and 4 line are so even. I mean, and they just change from day to day almost. And it's almost like the whole NCAA. We just wait from day to day to see who's going to slide up or down.
Yeah, and that's why it'll be interesting, because the first weekend, I think we're going to have a ton of seed upsets, but I'll be really interested to see how Vegas handles this, because I know that sort of apparently that is the unofficial determination of an upset, because I think we could definitely have some games in the first round and the second round where the lower seed may be favored over the higher seed. And so that might be not, like a 7-10 game. Right. For example, let's say the 7 was Michigan State and the 10 is Kentucky. You know, if Kentucky beats Michigan State in a 7-10 game, which that could happen, like those seeds and that matchup, to me, that wouldn't be an upset. I mean, look at the talent on the floor, but they're going to be seeded to their record, not their talent. So, you know, it will be interesting how things are worded, you know, on the broadcasts and how they say it, because I think we're going to have a lot of double-digit seeds win in the first weekend.
You know, when you're looking at doing your own, you know, rankings and stuff, how do you do that? Do you look at the record? Do you look at like what you see as the talent? How do you balance that when you're actually doing this?
So look, I do it a little differently. I mean, everyone, you know, it's all subjective. I like to do my rankings because I also do a bracket for NCAA. I view the bracket as like this, you know, the seeds, the body work and all that. My rankings, I look at a snapshot in time. Who's playing well? And that's why, because I go to 36, I'll include some teams like Hofstra, like Toledo, give some love around the country. You know, and I do that within the NCAA. You know, are they the 31st best team? Are they better than, you know, some of the other teams in a power league? No. But have they won 11 in a row or 12 in a row? Or are they playing better at this moment in time? Yes. You know, like I would get a lot of flack from UConn fans this season because there were times where I wasn't ranking UConn, but in our bracket, yeah, I had UConn as like a 5 or 6 because UConn had all these great wins early and they've got a good, the metrics are all great for them. But by the way, they were in 5th place in the Big East at 5 and 6. So, you know, to me, you know, they didn't deserve to be ranked in the top 25 during those weeks when they were struggling in conference. Seeding, all that, they were fine. But ranking, no. You know, to me, it's, you know, are you playing well right now? You should be ranked.
I think that's a great point. And Andy, I'll be honest, not trying to butter you up. We've known each other for too long. I wouldn't do that. But that's why I really like the Power 36, the power rankings you do. And I'm not trying to rip on anybody else. I'm just going to be honest. You're the one guy who I think actually does look at all the teams around the country when you put this together. You and I both know there's a lot of East Coast bias. I've joked with someone, I won't say his name, who's a colleague of ours, who went to an ACC school and he's made his way through our industry. That I joked that he doesn't know the Big Ten. And there was one year in 2005, actually, every single game he picked Michigan State to lose. And they get to the Final Four. And I saw him in St. Louis and I said, don't tell me Michigan State's losing tonight, right? I mean, it was because, but honestly, to be fair, he didn't know. He knew ACC, he knew Big East. And that's the one, I know you've got a Big Ten background, but that's the one thing that I do feel that when you go through, you do look at Pac-12. I mean, you already mentioned UCLA. You do look at, obviously, Big Ten with your background and what you do with BTN, with Big 12, with all those. And I think that's what really separates you, the way you go about things. I'll stop there and let you comment.
No, I appreciate that. But, you know, not everyone, like, especially on social media and Twitter, you know, context matters, nuance matters. People don't read into the nuances of all these things. You know, like, for example, you know, Northwestern was a good example. Like, that would have been atrocious had they not been ranked this past week. They just beat at home, you know, Purdue, Indiana, and Iowa in a row. Yeah. And I was glad they came in at 21. But, you know, they easily, based on the way other people look at things, they may not have been ranked, you know, but they were deserving of it, and they got it. And that's great. At a time when Rutgers was playing well, they were ranked, which is what was deserving. So, you know, like with your point, you were talking about the Big 12. I think you were saying that, you know, about that 2 line and the 3 line. Like, there's so many Big 12 schools, it's so hard to differentiate because they're just beating each other. We know they're all good, you know, those top 8 of the 7 or 8 of the Big 12, and they're all going to get in. And, you know, I think it's going to be interesting with the Big 12 and the Big 10, how those schools handle when they get in the NCAA tournament after being so scouted by everybody, how they handle, you know, sort of just freed of getting out of the stress of being over scouted for the last 2 months.
So Northwestern would probably be considered the biggest surprise in the Big Ten. I mean, I don't think anybody expected them to be in second place at this point. Who's been the disappointment for you in the Big Ten this far?
I mean, look, there's no question it's Ohio State. I mean, I saw Ohio State multiple games in a row in December, and I mean, maybe in the offseason I can get a hold of Chris and he'll break it all down as to really what happened, but I'm just sort of perplexed by the whole thing because I was at the Garden for that great game against Carolina. You know, they played well against Duke out in Maui. They didn't win, but they played well. I did one of their games in Columbus. Like, I just don't understand, you know, that they're in 13th place and they've lost 12-13. It's just, it's mind boggling. I just don't get it.
The other question that a lot of Big Ten fans have is how do you peg a team like Michigan with a ton of physical talent, but sometimes they just don't seem to put it together. But Lord knows you don't want to be on the other side of the court when they are all clicking.
You know, Michigan feels like a classic team that, like, I could easily see them getting to Dayton in a first four and then getting the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they had a great win against Rutgers on Thursday night. You know, they beat Michigan State obviously on Saturday. They still have a very tough schedule on the back end here in the last week and a half. But they, you know, and by the way, they beat Rutgers on the road without Jett Howard. He was hurt. So if those freshman guards, you know, Kobe Buffkin and McDaniel continue to play well, Joey Baker, and then when Howard comes back, they've got a lot of talent. There's no question that they've got enough talent to win some. Like, I will not be shocked if they're in the semis in the Big Ten tournament at all.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Hey, we've kept you way too long. In 30 seconds, how do you keep track of March with all the jobs and all the responsibilities you have? Do you ever sleep at all from this point until April?
I do not sleep as well in March, but I will say this. The good news is when I get to March, I'm all NCAA Turner, a couple of cameos on BTN, but at least can lock in on one job.
Yeah, it is. Well, we love this time of year and we love what you bring, and we really appreciate your time here on the show, and hopefully we'll get you to talk to you again soon.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right. Andy Katz joining us again. He is Big Ten Network, Turner Sports. He's NCAA as well. And again, like you said, we have tremendous respect for what he does for college basketball, and one of the guys we go to, especially this time of year. Stay with us. We'll pay some bills and we'll do a lot more talking, but without the expert Andy, because he's got better things to do than hang out with us. All right. More after this.